Hi guys, Mrs. Murphy here. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about your assignment for the positive negative project. I wanted to share with you a couple of examples from artists that you probably already know. So the first one I'm going to share with you that kind of highlights that positive negative and how it can be used when you're creating artwork is Georgia O'Keeffe. So if you guys can see in this skull picture, the skull and the rose are in the positive space, and the background is all blacked out in the negative space. So that's an oil painting. Here's another one of hers. These are bleeding heart flowers. They're called bleeding hearts. And you can see that the flowers and then a little bit of the green, that's all the positive space, and all the white behind it is the negative space. The reason why people use it in their artwork so much as an element of art and design is because it creates really nice contrast, and our eyes love contrast. We love that, like with color, you guys know complementary colors like red and green look really good together, orange and blue look wonderful together. Our eyes really like that contrast, that high contrast between two elements. Now this is an artist. My mother got me this book a long time ago. Her name is Joyce Tennyson, and she would take dried flowers and she would do photographs of them, and they would create these really dramatic sort of compositions, and I wanted to share them with you because she is using positive and negative to be the most aesthetically beautiful her pictures can be. So if you look here, so you see the entire background behind the flower, all that space is the negative space. And then the flower itself is the positive space. I'm going to show you a couple more examples of her work and how she can create these sort of little scenes and atmospheres. So these are poppy seed pods, and she's created this sort of atmosphere of these kind of seed pods, almost like they're having like a little group conversation or something, but all that black space behind them is negative space, and all the space where the flowers take up, that's the positive space. I'm going to show you one more of hers. If any of you were in my drawing class, you know that I talk a lot about when you're learning how to draw things, about the shapes that the negative space creates. So these flowers create these amazing triangles of black in that negative space. So if I was going to try to draw this, I would read that negative space between those petals to try to get it exact so that it would then form that positive space that is the petals of the flower. So all of the flower is the positive space, all of that black is the negative space. That's what positive and negative can look like through photography. Now, if you've watched my slideshow, which please watch my slideshow, I work very hard on them, you'll see some other examples. You'll see what positive and negative can look like in pottery, in paper cutting, which is really easy to see because when you're paper cutting, you create a composition and then you're literally cutting away the negative space to show the positive space. I'm going to show you one more. An Edward Hopper painting. Now, Edward Hopper was an oil painter, and he was classic positive negative. So you've got this foreground here with the ground, and then this whole building, which is your positive space. And then the negative space in the background is just the sky that's left behind. And it creates a really interesting contour line of this building. So the shape, the space, that focal point that it takes up, the space itself is really interesting, which makes our eyes really happy. So that's an example of how to do it in painting. Now for your project, you guys are going to create a positive negative project. And this is my example. As you can see, I use my hand as a tracer. Now if you've watched the slideshow and you've read the directions, then you will know that you can either use your hand as your tracer, or you can create your own tracer, and I'm going to show you how to do both things, okay? But for this one, I folded my paper in half. This is just computer paper, nothing fancy, okay? Folded it in half, and I opened it up. I traced my hands on one side And I traced my hand on the other side. I did it in opposite directions, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And then on one side, I decorated the negative space, so the space behind my hand, behind the object that I traced. I decorated it using, I don't know if you guys can see it up close, but I just did circles. I grabbed my Cool Color family and I did all different circles behind to try to highlight that positive, empty positive space. And then on this side, I did the same thing. I traced my hand again. And then for this one, I left the negative space white. And on the inside, I did that same pattern of those cool colors to highlight that positive space, okay? If you want to use your hand as a tracer, this is what I'm looking for, but I want you to come up with your own design. So fold your paper in half, trace your hands. On one side, highlight the positive space, so the space inside your hands. On the other side, you're going to highlight that negative space, so this everything behind your hands. So you'll have this nice balance, actually. We're using contrast to create balance, which is very nice. I'm going to show you guys how to do this if you don't have computer paper. Look what I've got. I've got some Ritz box cardboard. Easy peasy. I've got two pieces of it. This was one side of the box, this was the other side of the box. Now you can do the same thing. Trace your hand down on there. I'm going to do it with Sharpie just so that you guys can see it better on the cardboard. I recommend you always work in pencil first so that you can erase it if you need to. So I've done my hands on this one, and because these aren't connected, you're just going to trace your hand again on the other one. Now you guys can use anything you have for this. You can use colored pencils. You could use just pencil. You could use Sharpies. You could use markers, crayons, whatever you guys have at home. I don't want you guys going to the store for supplies, okay? So now I've got my two hands, okay? On one of them, I'm going to do a design, kind of like a Zentangle, whatever patterns you guys know, tons of lines, shapes, and colors you can fill that hand with. And then on this one, I'm going to do the background, okay? So it creates that positive, negative. Then I'm going to put them side by side, take a picture, and send it to Mrs. Murphy. Okay, please and thank you. Either email it to me or attach it to your assignment. That's fine too. Now, if you want to get extra creative, if you want to push that 3 up to a 4, you guys can create your own stencil and don't use your hand, okay? You're welcome to use your hand, but I'm just saying if you want to push it up and try for that 4 grade, create your own stencil. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to take a piece of computer paper. I'm going to fold it in half. I took a pasta box, okay? I made a hexagon. I'm going to trace my hexagon, and again, I'm going to use a Sharpie just so you guys can see it a little bit better, but I would suggest you using pencil to start in case you need to erase. I'm going to trace my hexagons all over the paper on both sides. If you guys want to add color to these, of course I would welcome you to add color. If you want to just do black and white, if you want to just do pencil, I want you to just use what you have. Please don't run to the store to get art supplies. Scrounge it up. If all you have is a highlighter, use it, make it work, okay? Be creative. You don't need to go to the store for anything to do these assignments. I'm specifically trying to create assignments so that you guys don't have to go to the store, okay? So if you don't have paper at home, if you don't have computer paper, go ahead and grab your recyclables. Pull out that cereal box that you just threw away after eating all your Frosted Flakes, okay? And cut it up. Get creative. You guys are all super creative kiddos. Use that knowledge. So here I've done one side with my hexagon tracer, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and create my next side. Now for this, my positive on one side is going to be the inside of my hexagon shape. And on the other side, it's going to be those spaces that I leave in between. I'll show you what I mean. So for this the line of symmetry, or the folded in half line where I folded my paper in half, is going to be really important for me to take notice of, especially if I'm going to do color. But for this one, I might just stick to black and white. You guys can use gel pens, you can use Sharpies, you can use Crayola, anything. You can use any kind of mediums that you have handy. Again, I don't want you going to the store for anything. Just use what you've got. Now this one's getting a little tricky because I'm trying to rush and my things aren't lining up perfectly, so I'm going to finagle the bag a little bit. Just some reminders while I'm getting this prepped out for you guys. Your projects are not due until June 1st. I've pushed back your due dates so that you don't feel scrambled, but please, if you have not started your projects at all, I've got a handful of middle school kiddos, that's you guys, that haven't even looked at our Art Google Classroom, so I don't want you to get overwhelmed. You got to pick away at this stuff. So, we have hexagons on both sides. Now I've got my paper folded, so on this side I'm going to actually draw that line of symmetry down so I don't get confused. I'm going to cut it right in half with my Sharpie. Okay, there we go. So on this side I'm going to actually do some designs inside of, and I'll do some quick little circles to show you what I mean, inside in the positive space of my hexagon shape. But on my other side, I'm going to, and I'm rushing, you guys will do a better job than this. On this side, now I'm going to do that negative space. Now your designs don't have to be the same on both sides. I'm okay if you wanted to do maybe stripes on one side and circles on another. That's fine by me. As long as you're showing me that you're understanding the concept of positive negative in artwork, I'm okay with however you want to depict that to me. Make sure that you or your grown-up is attaching a photo to of your artwork and getting it to me, whether it be to the Google Classroom or to me emailed. So on this side, I've created a design inside that positive space. On this side, I'm doing it in the negative space, that space in between. Okay, and behind the hexagons. All right, that's very rushed, but you get the idea. Positive, negative. Show me what you got. Okay, get creative. Do your best with what you have. Again, if you don't have paper at home, go ahead and use those recyclables. That's totally fine. Okay, I miss you guys. You have 2 weeks to work on this before I post a new assignment. All right, so work hard. Give me some good quality stuff so I can stick it in the folder and maybe print it up for the Deerfield Fair. I don't know. It might happen. I hope you're well. I miss you, and I hope that your family and you are safe and sound. Okay? See you next time. Bye-bye.